The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Lyle. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a light overcoat, a dark scarf, and a soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout the country there will be a certain freezing, particularly at points on the north and northeast coast of Scotland.
Mrs. Barlow! Mrs. Barlow! Oh.
Your nose is cold.
Oh, I've just come in.
Fine. Where have you been? Surely you could not be out in this weather.
I had to go down to the village for some stuff I'd forgotten. Did you get the chicken netting?
Oh, it wasn't the right sort. I went on to another dump, but that wasn't any good either. Practically a whole day wasted. My God, I'm half frozen. God, it's getting like anything. The snow's coming down thick. Which ones that will not snow up tomorrow?
Oh dear, I do hope not. If only the pipes don't freeze.
Well, we'll just have to keep the central heat well soaked up. I do wish they'd sent that coal along, though. We've not got any too much.
Oh dear, I do so want everything to go well at first. First impressions are so important.
So is everything ready? No one's arrived yet, I suppose?
No, thank goodness. I think everything's in order. Mrs. Barlow's cooked it early. Afraid of the weather, I suppose.
What a nuisance these daily women are. I suppose that is everything on your shoulders.
And yours. This is a partnership.
So long as you don't ask me to cook.
Oh, no, that's my department. Anyway, we've got lots of tins in case we are snowbound.
Oh, good.
Oh, Giles, do you think it's going to be all right?
Oh, we've got cold feet, have you?
Oh.
Are you fine now we didn't sell this place when your aunt left it to you? Instead of having this bad idea of running it to the guest house?
No, I'm not. I love it.
Good, but have you got all the rooms worked out?
Oh, yes. There's Mrs. Boyle front four-poster room, Major Metcalf blue room, Miss Casewell east room, and Mr. Wren oak room.
What would all these people will be like? Oughtn't you gotten rent in advance?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
We're rather mugs at this game.
They bring luggage. If they don't pay, we hang on to their luggage. It's quite simple.
I can't help thinking we ought to take a correspondence course in hotel keeping. We're bound to get padded some way. Their luggage maybe just breaks out of a newspaper. Where will we be then?
They all wrote from very good addresses.
That's what servants with false references do. Some of these people may be criminals hiding from the police.
Well, I don't care what they are, so long as they pay us 7 guineas every week.
Such a wonderful woman of business, Bonnie. I'll just go and stoke up the heat, eh?
According to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Clover Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Lyle. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a light overcoat, a dark scarf, and a soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The snow is expected to continue.
How do you do?
Thanks so much. Weather's simply awful. My taxi gave up at your gate. Went to do the drive. No sporting incident. Are you Mrs. Ross? How delightful. My name's Red.
How do you do, Mr. Wren?
No, you're not at all as I pictured you. I've been thinking of you as a retired general's with the Indian Army. I was thinking you'd be very grim and mince-heavish. The whole place would simply be crammed with Benares brass. But instead, it's heavenly. Quite heavenly. Lovely proportions. That's a fake. Ah, but this place is genuine. I'm simply going to love it here. Have you any wax flowers or birds of paradise?
No, I'm afraid not.
What a pity. Well, what about a sideboard? A great purple, plummy mahogany sideboard with great solid carved fruits on it?
Yes, we have it in the dining room.
Perfect.
Oh, but do come and warm yourself first.
Absolutely perfect.
Oh, this is my husband.
How do? Terrible weather. It's like catching back to Dickens and Scrooge and that irritating tiny tail. It's so bogus.
Yes, well, I'll just run your bag up for you. What oak root you say?
Yes.
Oh, I do hope that it's got a four-post with Hewlett's roses.
It hasn't.
I don't believe your husband's going to like me. Have you been married long? Are you very much in love?
We've been married just a year. Perhaps you'd like to go up and see your room.
Tick-tock. But I do so like knowing all about people. I mean, I find that people are so madly interesting, don't you?
Well, I suppose some are and some are not.
No, I don't agree. They're all interesting because you never really know what anyone is like, or what anyone is really thinking about. For instance, you don't know what I'm thinking about right now, do you?
Not in the least.
There, you see? The only people who know what other people are like are artists, and they don't know why they know it. But if they're portrait painters, it comes out on the canvas.
Oh, are you a painter?
No, I'm an architect. My parents, you see, baptized me Christopher in the hopes that I would become an architect. Christopher Wren! That's a good sad way home. Of course, everyone laughs and makes jokes about St. Paul's. But who knows, maybe someday I shall have the last laugh. Chris Wren's prefab nests may yet go down in history. I'm going to like it here. I find your wife most sympathetic.
Oh, indeed.
And really very beautiful.
Don't be absurd.
There, isn't that just like an English woman? Compliments always embarrass them. European women take compliments as a matter of course, but English women are with the feminine spirit crushed out of them by their husbands. Something frightfully boring about English husbands.
Oh, do come up and see your room.
Shall I?
Would you stoke up the hot water boiler?
Yes, dear, glad to.
This is Knoxville Manor, I presume?
Yes, it is.
I'm Mrs. Boyle.
I'm Frosted. Do come into the fire and warm yourself, Mrs. Boyle. A terrible weather we're having, eh? Is this your only luggage?
Major Metcalf is seeing to it. The taxi wouldn't risk coming up the drive. It stopped at the gate. We had to share a taxi from the station, and there was great difficulty in getting that. Nothing ordered to meet us, it seems.
Yeah, I'm so terribly sorry. You see, we didn't know what train you'd be coming by. Otherwise, of course, we'd have made sure that someone was standing by.
All trains should have been met.
Oh, well, let me take your things.
Oh, just this bit.
My wife will be down in just a moment. I'll just run along and give Metcalf a hand with those bags.
The drive might at least have been cleared of snow. Up-pent and casual, I must say.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, Mrs. Ralston.
Yes,
You're very young.
Young?
To be running an establishment of this kind, you can't have had much experience.
Well, there has to be a beginning for everything, hasn't there?
I see. Quite inexperienced. An old house. I hope you haven't got dry rot.
Certainly not.
Well, a lot of people don't know they've got dry rot until it's too late to do anything about it.
The house is in perfect condition.
It could do with a coat of paint.
Right this way, Major. Come here. Oh, this is my wife.
How do you do? Absolute blizzard outside. Well, at one point we shouldn't make it.
Oh, really?
Oh, I beg your pardon. If it goes on like this, I should say you'll have 5 or 6 feet of snow by morning. Not seen anything like it since I was on leave in 1940.
Well, I'll just run the bags up. What, blue room and rose room, you say?
Oh, no, I gave Mr. Wren the rose room. He liked the four-poster so much. So it's Mrs. Boyle, her room, and Major Metcalf, blue room.
Oh, right, Major.
Sir!
Do you have much servant difficulty here?
Oh, we have quite a good local woman who comes in from the village.
And what indoor staff?
Oh, no indoor staff, just us.
Indeed, I understood this was a guest house in full running order.
Oh, we're only just starting.
I would have said that a proper staff of servants was essential before opening this sort of establishment. I consider your advertisement most misleading. May I ask if I'm the only guest, with Major Metcalf, that is?
Oh, no, there are several here.
This weather, too. A blizzard, no less. All very unfortunate.
Well, we can't very well foresee the weather, can we?
The north wind doth blow, and it will bring snow, and what will the robin do then? Poor thing! I adore nursery rhymes, don't you? Always so tragic and macabre. That's why children like them.
Oh, may I introduce Mr. Wren, Mrs. Boyle?
How do you do?
This is a very beautiful house, don't you think so?
I have come to the time of life when the amenities of an establishment are more important than its appearance. If I had not believed this was a running concern, I should never have come here. I understood it was fully equipped with every home comfort.
Well, you're under no obligation to remain here if you're all satisfied, Mrs. Boyle.
No, indeed, I should not think of doing so.
Well, if there has been any misapprehension pensioner, perhaps it would be better if you went elsewhere. I have to ring up for the taxis, the roads are not yet closed. Besides, we've had so many applications for rooms, we should be able to fill your place quite easily, and we're planning on raising our terms next month.
I'm certainly not going to leave before I've tried what the place is like. You needn't think you can turn me out now. Perhaps you would take me up to my bedroom, Mrs. Ralston.
Certainly, Mrs. Boyle. Darling, you're wonderful.
I think that's a perfectly horrible woman. I don't like her one bit. I'd love to see you turn around in the snow and serve her right.
Well, it's a pleasure I've got to forego, I'm afraid. Oh, there's another on the Come in, come in.
Afraid my car's parked about half a mile down the road, ran into a drift.
Oh, well, let me take that for you. Any more stuff in the car?
No, I travel light. Oh, I'm glad to see you've got a good fire.
Mr. Wren, Miss...
Casewell.
Yes, my wife will be down in just a moment.
Oh, no hurry. I've to get myself good and thawed out. Looks as though you're going to be snowed up here, where the forecast said heavy falls expected, murders forward, etc. Hope you've got plenty of provisions in.
Oh, yes, my wife's an excellent manager. At any rate, we can always eat our ends.
Before we start eating each other, eh?
Any other news in the paper, apart from the weather?
No usual political crises. Ah, yes, and rather a juicy murder.
A murder? Oh, I like murder.
They seem to think it was some sort of homicidal maniac strangled some woman near Paddington. Sex maniac, I suppose.
Doesn't say much, does it? Police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity of the time, wearing a light overcoat, dark scarf, and soft felt hat. Messages to the suspect have been broadcast throughout the day.
Useful description. Would fit pretty well anyone, wouldn't it?
But it says that the police are anxious to interview someone. Is that a polite way of hinting that he's the murderer?
Could be.
Well, who was the woman who was murdered?
Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Maureen Lyon.
Young or old?
Doesn't say. Doesn't seem to have been a robbery.
I told you. Sex maniac.
But here's Miss Casewell, Molly, my wife.
How do you do? It's an awful night out. Would you like to go up to your room? The water's hot if you like a bath. All right, I would. I must go out to the kitchen and get on with things. Major Medcoff's very nice. He won't be any trouble. As Mrs. Boyle really frightens me. Must have a nice dinner. Now, I was thinking of opening 2 tins of minced beef and cereal and a tin of peas and mashing the potatoes. And then there's stewed figs and custard. Do you think that would be all right?
Well, I should think so. Not terribly original, perhaps.
Oh, do let me help. I adore cooking. What about an omelette? You've got eggs, haven't you?
Yes, we've got plenty of eggs. We keep lots of fowls. They don't lay as well as they might, but we put down lots of eggs.
And if you've got a bottle of cheap, any type wine, you can add it to the minced beef and cereals, did you say? Give it a continental flavour. Oh, show me your kitchen and what you've got, and I dare say I shall have an inspiration.
Come on! Isn't he sweet? He's put on an apron and he's getting everything ready. He says, go away and leave him alone for half an hour. Well, if the guests want to do the cooking themselves, it will save a lot of trouble.
Why don't you give him the best room?
I told you he liked the 4-poster.
Oh, he liked the pretty 4-poster. Twerp.
Giles!
I've got no use for that salt, Molly. Besides, you didn't carry his bag. I did.
Have you got bricks in it?
It was no weight at all. If you ask me, there was nothing inside. He's probably one of those young men who goes about the countryside bilking hotel keepers.
I don't believe it. I like him. I think Miss Casewell's rather peculiar, though, don't you?
Oh, a terrible female. If she is a female.
Seems rather hard that all our guests are either unpleasant or odd.
All right.
Anyway, I think Major Metcalf's all right, don't you?
Probably drinks. No, I was just feeling rather depressed. At any rate, we know the worst now. They've all arrived.
What on earth can that be?
It's probably the couple of a street man.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh, 1,000 pardons. I am, where am I?
this is Monkswell Manor Guest House.
Oh, but what stupendous good fortune! Oh, madame. Oh, what an answer to prayer. A guest house and a charming hostess. My Rolls Royce Alexis ran into a snowdrift, blinding snow everywhere. I do not know where I am. Perhaps I think to myself I shall freeze to death. But then I take a little bag, I stagger through the snow. I see before me big iron gates. Habitation! I am saved. Twice I fall into the snow as I come up your drive, but at last I arrive, and immediately despair turns to joy. Oh, you can let me have a room, yes?
Oh, yes.
It's rather a small one, I'm afraid.
Naturally. You have other guests.
We've only just started this place today as a guest house, and so we're rather new at it.
Oh, charming. Charming.
Well, do you have any other luggage?
Oh, that is of no consequence. I've locked the car secure.
Would it be better to get it in?
No. I can assure you on such a night as this, there will be no thieves abroad. As for me, my wants are very simple. I have all I need here in this little bag. Yes, all that I need.
You'd better get thoroughly warm. I'll go and see about your room. I'm afraid it's rather a cold room because it faces north, but all the others are occupied.
Oh, you have several guests then?
Oh, yes. There's Mrs. Boyle, Major Metcalf, and Miss Casewell, and a young man called Christopher Wren, and now you.
Yes, the unexpected guest. The guest that you did not invite. The guest who just arrived from nowhere, out of the storm. Oh, it sounds quite dramatic, don't you think? Who am I? You do not know. Where do I come from? You do not know. Oh, me, I'm the man of mystery. Oh, but now I tell you this. I complete the picture. From now on, there will be no more arrivals, and no departures either. By tomorrow, or perhaps even already, we are cut off from civilization. No butcher, no baker, no milkman, no postman, no daily papers. Nobody and nothing but ourselves. That is admirable. Admirable. It could not suit me better. My name, by the way, is Parvati, Mr. and Mrs.
Ralston.
And this is Monkswell Manor Guest House.
Yes.
Oh, good. Monkswell Manor Guest House. Oh, perfect. Oh, perfect.
Really, I consider it most dishonest not to have told me they were only just starting this place.
Well, everything's got to have a beginning, you know? Excellent breakfast this morning. Good coffee, scrambled eggs, homemade marmalade. And all very nicely served, too. The little woman does it all herself.
Amateurs, there should be a proper staff.
Excellent lunch, too.
Oh, corned beef.
But very well, this is Guy's corned beef, red wine with it. And Mrs. Ralston promised to bake a pie for us tonight. Very comfortable beds, too. At least mine was. Hope yours was, too.
It was quite adequate. Really, Major Metcalf, must you?
Yeah, very well.
Well, I don't quite see why the best bedroom should have been given to that very peculiar young man.
Got here ahead of us. First come, first served.
Well, from the advertisement, I got quite a different impression what this place would be like. A comfortable writing room and a much larger place altogether, with bridge and other amenities.
Regular old Teddy's delight.
I beg your pardon?
I mean, yes, I quite see what you mean.
No, indeed. I shan't stay here long.
No, I don't suppose you shall.
Really, what a peculiar young man. Unbalanced mentally, I shouldn't wonder.
I think he's escaped from a lunatic asylum.
I shouldn't be at all surprised.
Giles,
Yes, dear.
can you shovel the snow away again from the back door?
Oh, yes, darling.
I'll give you a hand, what? Good exercise. Must have exercise.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Really, what an incredible young woman. Doesn't she know anything about housework? Carrying a carpet sweeper through the front hall. Are there any back stairs?
Oh, yes, nice stairs. Very convenient if there were to be a fire.
Then why not use them? Anyway, all the housework should have been done in the morning before lunch.
I gather our hostess had to cook the lunch.
All very haphazard and amateurish. There should be a proper staff.
Not very easy to get nowadays, is it?
No, indeed. The lower classes seem to have no idea of their responsibilities.
Poor old lower classes. Got the bit between their teeth, haven't they?
I gather you are a socialist.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'm not a red. I'm just sort of pale pink. But I don't take much interest in politics. I live abroad.
I suppose conditions are much easier abroad.
I don't have to cook and clean, as I gather most people have to do in this country.
This country has gone sadly downhill. Not what it used to be. I sold my house last year. Everything was too difficult.
Oh, hotels and guest houses are easier.
They certainly solve some of one's problems. Are you over in England for long?
Depends. I've got some business to see to. When it's done, I shall go back.
To France?
No.
Italy?
No.
Would you mind not having it on quite so loud? I always find the radio rather distracting when one is trying to write letters.
Do you?
If you don't particularly want to listen just now,
Who is my favorite music? There's a writing table in there.
I know, but it's much warmer in here.
Oh, much warmer, I agree. Bloody old bitch.
Wherever I go, that woman seems to hunt me down, and she glares at me. Positively glares.
Turn it down a bit.
Is that all right?
Oh, yes, it served its purpose.
What purpose?
Tactics, boy.
Oh, you mean her?
She pinched the best chair, but I've got it now.
You drove her out. I'm glad. I'm very glad. I don't like her one bit. Let's think of things we can do to annoy her, shall we? I wish she'd just go away from here.
In this, not to him.
But when the snow melts.
Ah, yes, when the snow melts. Lots of things may have happened.
Yes, that's very true. It's very calm and peaceful, the snow. It makes one forget things.
It doesn't make me forget.
How fix you, Sal?
I was just thinking.
What sort of thinking?
Ice on a bedroom jug. Chilblains raw and lean. One thin ragged blanket. A child shivering with cold and fear.
My dear, it sounds too grim. What is it, a novel?
You didn't know I was a writer, did you?
Are you?
Sorry to disappoint you. Actually, I'm not.
Yes. Yes, this is Monkswell Manor Guest House. What? No, I'm afraid Mr. Ralston can't come to the telephone just now. This is Mrs. Ralston speaking. Who? Berkshire Police? Why, yes. Yes, Superintendent Holborn. No, I'm afraid that's impossible. He never gets here. We're snowed up, completely snowed up. No, the roads are impassable. Nothing can get through. Well, yes. Yes, but what? Hello? Hello?
Oh, Molly, do you know there's another spade?
Charles, the police have just rung up.
Trouble with the police, eh? Serving liquor without a license?
They're sending out an inspector or a sergeant or something.
He'll never get here.
That's what I told them, but they seemed quite confident that he
Oh,
would.
nonsense. Even a jeep couldn't get through with this. Anyway, what's it all about?
That's what I asked, but he wouldn't say. Just said that I was to impress upon my husband to listen very carefully to what Sergeant Trotter, I think it was, had to say, and to follow his instructions implicitly. Isn't it extraordinary?
Rather, but what do you suppose we've done?
Ooh, do you think it's those nylons from Gibraltar?
No, I did recall to get the wireless license in time.
Yes, it's in the kitchen dresser.
I had another close shave with the car the other day, but that was entirely the other fellow's fault.
Well, we must have done something.
Oh, I suspected something to do to do with running this place, dear. You know, we've ignored some tin-pot regulation of some minister or other. You practically can't avoid it nowadays.
Dear, I wish we'd never started this place. Well, we shall be snowed up for days, and everyone is cross, and we shall go for our reserve of tins.
Cheer up, darling. Everything's all right for the moment. I've filled up all the coal scuttles and brought in the wood and stoked up the stove with another hens. Perhaps next I'll go and chop some kindling and do the boiler, and then... Do you know, Mud, it must be something really quite serious in the police sergeant tracking out all of this. I mean, it must be something really quite urgent.
Oh, there you are, Mrs. Ralston. Did you know the central heating in the library is practically stone cold?
Terribly sorry, Mrs. Boyce. They've already been sold on coal.
I am paying 7 guineas a week here. 7 guineas, and I do not want to breathe.
I'll go and stoke it up.
Mrs. Ralston, if you do not mind my saying so, it is a very extraordinary young man you have staying here. His manners and his ties, and does he ever brush his hair?
He is an extremely brilliant young architect.
I beg your pardon?
Christopher Wren is an architect.
My dear young woman, naturally I had heard of Sir Christopher Wren. Of course he was an architect. He built St. Paul's. You young people seem to think that no one is educated but yourself.
I meant this Wren. His name is Christopher. His parents called him that in hopes that he'd be an architect. And he is one, or very nearly one, so it turned out all right.
It sounds a fishy story to me. I should make some inquiries about him if I were you. What do you know of him?
Just as much as I know about you, Mrs. Boyle, which is that you are both paying us 7 guineas every week. That is all I really need to know, isn't it? And all that concerns me. It doesn't really matter to me whether I like my guests or whether I don't.
You are young and inexperienced and should welcome advice from someone more knowledgeable than yourself. What about this foreigner?
What about him?
Well, you weren't expecting him, were you?
To turn away a bona fide traveler is against the law, Mrs. Boyle. You should know that.
Why do you say that?
Well, weren't you a magistrate sitting on the bench, Mrs. Boyle?
All I say is that this Paragon Chainsky, or whatever he calls himself.
Beware, dear lady, you talk with the devil, and there he is.
I didn't hear you come in.
Well, I came in on tiptoe, like this. Nobody ever hears me if I do not want them to. I find that very amusing.
Indeed.
Now, there was a young lady here.
I must get on with my letters. I'll see if it's a little warmer in the drawing room.
My charming hostess looks upset. What is it, dear lady?
Oh, everything's rather difficult this morning because of the snow.
Oh, yes, snow makes things difficult, does it not? Or else it makes them easy. Oh, yes, very easy.
I don't know what you mean.
No, there's quite a lot you do not know. I think, for one thing, that you do not know very much about running a guest house.
I dare say we don't, but we intend to make a go of it.
Bravo, bravo.
I'm not such a very bad cook.
Oh, you are without doubt an enchanting cook. May I give you a little word of warning, Mrs. Ralston? You and your husband must not be too trusting, you know. Have you references with these guests of yours?
Well, is that usual? I always thought people just came.
It is advisable to know a little about the people who sleep under one's roof. Take, for example, myself. I turn up saying that my car is overturned in a snowdrift. Well, what do you know of me? Nothing at all. Why, I may be a thief, a robber, a fugitive from justice, a madman, even a murderer. Oh, you see, and perhaps you know just as little of your other guests as well.
Well, as far as Mrs. Boyle
The
goes,
drawing room is far too cold to sit in. I shall write my letters here.
Allow me to poke the fire for you.
Mrs. Ralston, is your husband about? I'm afraid the pipes of the downstairs cloakroom are frozen.
oh dear, what an awful day. First the police and now the pipes.
Police?
Police, did you say?
Well, they rang up just now to say they're sending a sergeant out here, but I don't think they'll ever get here.
Only that's what they called was a half stone. Just the price for something you said. Hello, is something the matter?
I hear the police are on their way here. Why?
Don't worry, no one will get through in this. Snow's all over, some drifts 5 feet high, and no one will get here today.
Are you Mr. Ralston?
Yes?
Thank you, sir. Detective Sergeant Trotter, Berkshire Police. Can I get these skis off and stolen somewhere?
Certainly. Come right in.
Thank you, sir.
I suppose that's what we pay our police force for nowadays. Go around enjoying themselves if it was a sport.
Why did you send for the police, Mrs. Ralston?
But I didn't.
Who's that man? Where did he come from? He passed the drawing room window on skis, all over snow and looking terribly hearty.
You may believe it or not, but that man is a policeman. A policeman skiing.
Right this way here. This is Detective Sergeant Trotter.
Good afternoon.
You can't be a sergeant, you're too young.
Not quite as young as I look, madam.
But terribly hearty.
We'll just get your skis and stow them away under the stairs, eh?
Excuse me, Mrs. Ralston, but may I use your telephone?
Oh, certainly, Major Metcalf.
He's very attractive, isn't he? I always find the policemen are very attractive.
No brains, you can see that at a glance.
Hello? Hello? Mrs. Ralston, this telephone is dead. Quite dead.
But it was all right just about half an hour ago.
The line's gone with the weight of the snow, I suppose.
So we're quite cut off now. Quite cut off. That's funny, isn't it?
I don't see anything at all to laugh at.
No, indeed.
It's a private joke of my own. Yes, the seat is returned.
Now you can get to business, Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston.
Well, would it be better to see us alone? If so, we can go to the library.
It's not necessary, sir. It'll save time if everybody's present.
Oh, do hurry up and tell us. What have we done?
Done? Oh, it's nothing of that kind, Mrs. Ralston. It's something quite different. It's more a matter of police protection, if you understand me.
Police protection?
It relates to the death of Mrs. Lyon. Mrs. Maureen Lyon of 24 Culver Street, London, West 2, who was murdered yesterday, the 15th instant. You may have heard or read about the case.
Yes, I heard it on the wireless. The woman who was strangled.
That's right, madam. The first thing I want to know is if you were acquainted with this Mrs. Lyon.
No, never heard of her.
You mayn't have known of her under the name of Lyon. Lyon wasn't her real name. She had a police record and her fingerprints were on file, so we were able to identify her without difficulty. Her real name was Maureen Stanning. Her husband was a farmer, John Stanning, who resided at Long Ridge Farm, not very far from here.
Long Ridge Farm? Wasn't it the place where those children
Yes,
were?
the Long Ridge Farm case.
3 children.
That's right, miss. The Corrigans, 2 boys and a girl, brought before the court as in need of care and protection. A home was found for them with Mr. and Mrs. Stanning at Long Ridge Farm. One of the children subsequently died as the result of criminal neglect and persistent ill treatment. The case made a bit of a sensation at the time.
It was horrible.
The Stannings were sentenced to terms of imprisonment. Stanning died in prison. Mrs. Stanning served her sentence and was duly released. Yesterday, as I say, she was found strangled at 24 Culver Street.
Who did it?
I'm coming to that, madam. A notebook was picked up near the scene of the crime. In that notebook was written 2 addresses. The first was 24 Culver Street. The second was Monkswell Manor.
What?
Yes, sir. That's why Superintendent Holtbin, on receiving this information from Scotland Yard, thought it imperative for me to come out here and find out if you knew of any connection between this house, or anyone in this house, and the Long Ridge Farm case.
No, nothing at all. It must be some sort of a coincidence.
Superintendent Holtbin doesn't think it is a coincidence, sir. He'd have come himself if it had been in any way possible, under the weather conditions, and as I can see, he sent me with instructions to get full particulars of everyone in the house, to report back to him by phone, and to take what measures I thought fit to ensure the safety of the household.
Oh, safety? Well, what danger does he think we're in? Surely he's not suggesting there's going to be another death here.
I don't want to frighten any of the ladies, but frankly, yes, that is the idea.
But why?
That's what I'm here to find out.
Oh, I can hardly believe it. It sounds so crazy.
Yes, sir. It's because it's crazy that it's dangerous.
Oh, nonsense.
I must say, it seems a bit far-fetched.
I think it's wonderful.
Is there something that you haven't told us, Sergeant?
Yes, Mrs. Ralston. Below the 2 addresses was written 3 blind mice, and on the dead woman's body was a paper with "This is the first" written on it, and below the words a drawing of 3 little mice and a bar of music. The music was a tune of the nursery rhyme, 3 blind mice. You know how it goes. 3 blind mice. 3
Oh, it's
blind.
horrible.
Well, there were 3 children, and one of them died.
Yes, the youngest, the boy of 11.
Well, what's happened to the other 2?
The girl was adopted by someone. We haven't been able to trace her present whereabouts. The elder boy would now be about 22. Deserted from the army and has not been heard of since. According to the army psychologist, was definitely schizophrenic. A bit queer in the head, that's to say.
They think that it was he who murdered Mrs. Stanning.
Yes.
And that he's a homicidal maniac and that he will turn up here and try to kill someone, but why?
That's what I've got to find out from you. As the superintendent sees it, there must be some connection. Now, you state, sir, that you yourself have never had any connection with the Longridge Farm case?
No.
And the same goes for you, madam?
No connection.
What about servants?
We haven't got any servants. That reminds me, Sergeant. Would it be all right if I went out to the kitchen? I'll be right there if you need me.
That's quite all right, Mrs. Ralston. Now, can I have all your names, please?
Really, this is quite ridiculous. We're really staying in a kind of a hotel. We only arrived here yesterday. We've nothing to do with this place.
You plan to come here in advance, though. You booked your rooms ahead.
Well, yes. Also, Mr. Paramecium.
Paramecium? My car overturned in a snowdrift.
I see. What I'm getting at is that anyone who's been following you around might know very well that you are coming here. Now, there's just one thing I want to know, and I want to know it quick. Which one of you is it that has some connection with that business at Longridge Farm? You're not being very sensible, you know. One of you is in danger, deadly danger. I've got to know which one that is. All right, I'll ask you one by one. You first, since you seem to have arrived here more or less by accident, Mr.
Paravicini. But my dear Inspector, I know nothing of what you've been talking about. I'm a stranger in this country. I know nothing of these local affairs of bygone years.
Mrs.
Boyle, but really, I consider it an impertinence. Why on earth should I have anything to do with such distressing business?
Miss...
Casewell. Leslie Casewell. I've never heard of Longridge Farm, and I know nothing about it.
You, sir?
Metcalf. Major Metcalf. Read about the case in the papers at the time. I was stationed at Edinburgh then, though no personal knowledge.
And you?
Christopher Wren. I was a mere child at the time. I don't remember even hearing about it.
And that's all you had to say? Any of you? Well, if one of you gets murdered, you'll have yourself to blame. Now, Mr. Wilson, can I have a look around the house?
Yes, certainly. Right this way.
My dears, how melodramatic. He's very attractive, isn't he? I do admire the police, so stern and hard-boiled. Quite a thrill, this whole business. Let's see, 3 blind mice. How does that tune go?
Really, Mr. Wren?
Don't you like it? It's a signature tune. The signature of a murderer. Just fancy what a kick you must be getting out of it.
Melodramatic rubbish. I don't believe a word of it.
But just wait, Mrs. Boyle, till I creep up behind you and you feel my hands upon you.
Oh, stop it!
That'll do, Christopher. It's a poor joke anyway. In fact, it is not a joke at all.
But it is. That's just what it is. A madman's joke. That's just what makes it so deliciously macabre. If you could just see your faces.
A singularly ill-mannered and erotic young man.
Where's Giles?
Taking our policeman on a conducted tour of the house.
Your friend, the architect, has been behaving in a most abnormal manner.
Young fellas seem very nervy nowadays. I dare say he'll grow out of it.
Nerves? I've no patience with people who say they've got nerves. I haven't any nerves.
No? Well, perhaps that's just as well for you, Mrs. Boyle.
What do you mean?
I think that you were one of the magistrates on the bench at the time. In fact, you were responsible for sending those 3 children to Longridge Farm.
Really, Major Metcalf, I can hardly be held responsible. We had reports from welfare workers. The farm people seemed very nice and were most anxious to have the children. It seemed most satisfactory. Fresh eggs and milk and healthy out-of-doors life.
Kicks, blows, starvation, and a thoroughly vicious couple.
But how was I to know? They were very civilly spoken.
Yes, I was right. It was you.
One tries to do a public duty, and all one gets is abuse.
Oh, you must forgive me, but indeed I find all this most amusing. I enjoy myself greatly.
Never did like that man.
Where did that man come from last night?
I don't know.
Well, he looks a bit of a spirit to me. Where's makeup too? Rouge and powder disgusting. He must be quite old, too.
And yet he's skilled look quite young.
You'll be wanting more wood. Oh, I'll get it.
It's nearly dark, yet it's only 4 in the afternoon. Well, I'll turn on the lights. There, that's better.
Now, where did I leave my bed?
Oh, what a horrid little tune that is.
Don't you like it?
Perhaps
It reminds you of your childhood. An unhappy childhood?
I was very happy as a child.
You were lucky.
Weren't you happy?
No.
I'm sorry.
But that was a long time ago. One forgets things.
I suppose so.
Or doesn't one? Damn hard to say.
They say that what happened when you were a child matters more than anything else.
They say. They say. Who says?
Psychologists.
It's all nonsense. Just all a whole bunch of humbug. I've got no use for psychologists and psychiatrists.
Well, I've never really had much to do with them.
Well, good for you that you haven't. It's all hooey, the whole thing. Life's what you make of it. Go straight ahead and don't look back.
I can't always help looking back.
Nonsense. It's a question of willpower.
Perhaps.
I know.
Oh, I expect you're right. But sometimes things happen to make you remember.
Don't give in. Turn your back on them.
But is that really the right way? I wonder, perhaps that's all wrong. Perhaps we're not ready to face them.
Depends on what you're talking about.
Oh, well, sometimes I don't know what I am talking about.
Nothing from the past is going to affect me, except the way that I want it to.
Well, that completes the tour. Nothing suspicious. I think I'll make my report now to Superintendent Holden.
Oh, but you can't telephone. The line's dead.
What? Since when?
Well, Major Metcalf tried it shortly after you arrived.
But it was all right earlier. Superintendent Holden got through all right.
Oh, yes, but since then, I suppose the line is down with the snow.
I wonder. It may have been cut.
Cut? Who would cut it?
Mr. Ralston, just how much do you know about these people who are staying in your guest house?
Well, I mean, we don't really know anything about them.
Ah.
Well, Mrs. Boyle wrote from a Bournemouth hotel, and Major Metcalf from an address well,
Leamington.
Yes, Leamington. And Wren wrote from Hampstead, and that Casewell woman from a private hotel in Kensington. Perricini, as you know, sort of turned up out of the blue last night, but I suppose they've all got ration books and that sort of thing.
I shall go into all that, of course. But there's not much reliance to be placed on that sort of evidence.
But even if this maniac is trying to get here and kill us, or one of us, well, we're quite safe now. Because of the snow. No one can get here till it melts.
Unless he's here already.
Here already?
Why not, Mr. Ralston? All these people arrived here yesterday evening, some hours after the murder of Mrs. Stanning. Plenty of time to get here.
But except for Perricini, they'd all booked beforehand.
Well, why not? These crimes were planned.
Crimes? There's only been one crime, in Culver Street. What makes you so sure there'll be another here?
What will happen here? No. I hope to prevent that. That it will be attempted? Yes.
I hardly believe that. Sounds rather fantastic.
It isn't fantastic, it's just fact.
But you've got a description of what this man looked like in London.
Medium height, indeterminate build, lightish overcoat, soft felt hat, face hidden by muffler, spoke in a whisper. There are 3 lightish overcoats hanging up in the hall now. One of them is yours, Mr. Ralston. There are 3 soft felt
I
hats.
still can't believe it.
It's this telephone wire that worries me. If it's been cut...
I must go out and get on with the vegetables.
Is there an extension?
Beg your pardon? Did you say something?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I said, is there an extension?
Yes, there is, up in our bedroom.
Go and try it up there for me, will you?
Yes. Oh.
As the mechanics of theatre, you have to study the precise element produced by the human mind. Imagine, for instance, that you are alone in a room. It is late in the afternoon. A door opens softly behind you.
Oh, it's you. I can't seem to find any program worth listening to on the radio.
I can't think. My head's
Mrs.
numb.
Boyle had only just been killed when you got to her. You came from the kitchen. Are you sure you didn't see or hear anyone as you came along the hallway?
No, I don't think so. Just the radio blaring out in here. I couldn't think who turned it on so loud. I wouldn't hear anything else but that, would I?
That was clearly the murderer's idea. Or murderess.
How could I hear anything else?
You might have done. If the murderer had left the hall that way, he might have heard you coming from the kitchen. He might have slipped up the back stairs or into the dining room.
I'm not sure, that I heard a door creak and then shut as I came from the kitchen.
Which door?
I don't know.
Think, Mrs. Ralston, try and think. Upstairs, downstairs, close at hand, right, left.
I don't know, I tell you. I'm not even sure I heard anything.
Could you stop bullying her? Can't you see she's
We're
just all
investigating a
here?
murder, Mr. Ralston. Up to now, nobody's taken this thing seriously. Mrs. Boyle didn't. She held out on me with information. You all held out on me. Well, Mrs. Boyle is dead. Unless we get to the bottom of this, and quickly, mind, there may be another death.
Another? Nonsense. Why?
Because there were 3 little blind mice.
A death for each of them? Well, that would have to mean some connection, another connection with that Longridge Farm business.
Yes, there would have to be that.
But why another death here?
Because there were only 2 addresses in the notebook we found. Now, 24 Culver Street, there was only one possible victim. She's dead. But here at Monkswell Manor, there is a wider field.
Nonsense. Surely it would be a most unlikely coincidence that there should be 2 people brought here by chance, both with the share of the Longridge Farm case.
Given certain circumstances, it wouldn't be so much of a coincidence. Think it out, Miss Casewell. Now, I want to get down quite clearly where everyone was at the time Mrs. Boyle was killed. I've already got Mrs. Ralston's statement. You were in the kitchen preparing vegetables. You came out of the kitchen, along the passage, through the swing door, into the hall, and in here. The radio was blaring, but the light was switched off and the hall was dark. You switched the light on, saw Mrs. Boyle, and screamed.
Yes, I screamed and screamed. And at last people came.
Yes, as you say, people came. A lot of people from different directions, all arriving more or less at once. Now then, when I was outside to trace the telephone wire, you, Mr. Ralston, went upstairs to the room you and Mrs. Ralston occupied to try the extension telephone. Where were you when Mrs. Ralston screamed?
I was still up in the bedroom. I checked that telephone, but it was dead as well. I opened the window to see if I could tell where the lines had been cut there, but I couldn't. And just as I closed the window, I heard Molly scream, and I rushed right down.
Those simple actions took you rather a long time, didn't they, Mr. Ralston?
I don't think so.
I should say you definitely took your time over them.
I was thinking about something.
Very well. Now then, Mr. Wren, I'll have your account of where you were.
I had been in the kitchen, seeing if there was anything I could do to help Mrs. Ralston. I adore cooking. After that, I went upstairs to my bedroom.
Why?
It's a perfectly natural thing to do, to go to one's bedroom, don't you think? I mean, one does want to be alone sometimes.
You went to your bedroom because you wanted to be alone?
I wanted to brush my hair and tidy up.
You wanted to brush your hair?
Anyway, that's where I was.
And you heard Mrs. Ralston scream?
Yes.
And you came down?
Yes.
Curious that you and Mr. Ralston didn't meet on the stairs.
I came down by the back stairs. They're near to my room.
Did you go to your room by the back stairs, or did you come through here?
I went up by the back stairs, too.
I see. Mr. Parvicini?
I have told you I was playing the piano in the drawing room. Through there, Inspector.
Not an inspector, just a sergeant, Mr. Parvicini. Did anybody hear you playing?
I do not expect so. I was playing very softly with one finger, so...
You were playing 3 blind mice.
Is that so?
Oh, yes. Well, it is a catchy little tune. It is, how shall one say, a haunting little tune, don't you all agree?
I think it's horrible.
And yet, it runs in people's heads. Someone was whistling it, too.
Whistling it? Where?
Oh, I'm not sure. Perhaps in the hall. Or perhaps on the stairs. Or perhaps even upstairs in a bedroom.
Who was whistling 3 blind mice? Are you making this up, Mr. Parvicini?
No, Inspector. Oh, I beg your pardon, Sergeant. I would not do a thing like that.
Well, go on. You're playing the piano.
With one finger, so. And then I hear the radio playing very loudly. Someone is shouting on it. It offended my ears. And after that, suddenly, I hear Mrs. Ralston scream.
Mr. Ralston upstairs, Mr. Wren upstairs, Mr. Parvicini in drawing room. Miss Casewell?
I was writing letters in the library.
Did you hear what was going on in here?
No, not until I heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
And what did you do then?
Came in here.
At once.
Think so?
You say you were writing letters when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream?
Yes.
And got up from the writing table hurriedly and came in here?
Yes.
And yet there doesn't seem to be any unfinished letter on the writing desk in the library.
I brought it with me.
Here's Jessie. A friend of yours or a relation?
That's none of your damn business.
Perhaps not. You know, if I were to hear someone screaming blue murder when I was writing a letter, I don't believe I'd take the time to pick up my unfinished letter, fold it, and put it in my pocket before going to see what was the matter.
You wouldn't. How interesting.
Now then, Major Metcalf, what about you? You say you were in the cellar. Why?
Looking around, just looking around. I looked into that cupboard place under the stairs with the kitchen, of junk and sports tackle, and then I noticed another door inside it. I opened it and saw a flight of steps. I was curious, so I went down. Nice cellars you've got.
Glad you like them.
No, not at all. Not an old crypt, an old monastery, I should say. Probably why this place is called Knoxville.
We're engaged in antiquarian research, Major Metcalf. We're investigating a murder. Mrs. Ralston has told us that she heard a door shut with a faint creak. That particular door shut with a creak. It could be, you know, that after killing Mrs. Boyle, the murderer heard Mrs. Ralston coming from the kitchen and slipped into the cupboard, pulling the door to after him.
A lot of things could be.
There would be fingerprints inside the cupboard.
Oh, mine are there, all right. But then, most criminals are careful to wear gloves, aren't they?
It's usual, but all criminals slip up sooner or later.
I wonder, Sergeant, if that's really true.
Well, look here, aren't we wasting time? Seems to me there's just one person
Ralston,
here.
I'm in charge of this investigation.
Very well. God bless.
Mr. Ralston, thank you. We've got to establish opportunity, you know, as well as motive. And now let me tell you this. You all had opportunity. Staircases. Anyone could go up by one and come down by the other. Anyone could go down to the cellars by the door near the kitchen and come up by a flight of steps that leads up through a trap door to the foot of the stairs. The vital fact was that every one of you was alone at the time the murder was committed.
But look here, you speak as if we're all under suspicion, and that's absurd.
In a murder case, everyone is under suspicion.
But you know pretty well who killed that woman in Culver Street, don't you? You think it's one of those young children from the farm. A mentally abnormal young man, about 23 years of age. Well, damn it all, there's only one person here who fits that bill.
It's not true! It's not true! You're all against me. Everyone's always been against me. You're trying to friend me for these murders. It's persecution, that's what it is. It's persecution!
Steady, Chris, steady.
It's all right, Chris. Nobody's against you. Tell him it's all right.
We don't frame people.
Tell him you're not going to arrest him.
I'm not arresting anyone. To do that, I've got to have evidence. I haven't got any evidence yet.
Oh, I think you're crazy, Molly, and you too. There's just one person here who fits the bill, and I think if only as a safety measure, he ought to be placed under arrest. It's only fair to the rest of us.
Giles, please. Sergeant Trotter, can I talk to you for just a minute?
Certainly, Mrs. Ralston. Will the rest of you leave us alone, please?
Well, I'm staying.
Oh, no, please, you too, Giles.
What's come over you, Molly? I'm staying.
Please, Giles.
Yes, Mrs. Ralston, what is it you wanted to say to me?
Sergeant Trotter, you think that this crazy killer may be one of those 3 children from the farm, but you don't know that, do you?
We don't actually know a thing. All we've got so far is that the woman who joined with her husband in ill-treating and starving those children has been killed, and that the woman magistrate who was responsible for placing them there has been killed. The telephone wire that links me with police headquarters has been cut.
And you don't even know that. It may have been just the snow.
No, Mrs. Ralston, the line was deliberately cut. It was cut just outside by the front door. I found the place.
I see.
Sit down, Mrs. Ralston.
But all the same, you don't know.
I'm going by probability. It all points one way. Mental instability, childish mentality, desertion from the army, and a psychiatrist's report.
I know, and therefore it all seems to point believe it was, Christopher. There must be other possibilities.
Such as?
Well, hadn't those children any relations at all?
The mother was a drunk. She died soon after the children were taken away from her.
What about their father?
He was an army sergeant serving abroad. If he's alive, he's probably discharged from the army by now.
You don't know where he is now?
We've no information. To trace him may take some time, but I can assure you, Mrs. Ralston, the police take every eventuality into account.
But you don't know where he may be at this very minute. And if the son is mentally unstable, well, the father may have been unstable too.
Well, it's a possibility.
If he came home after being held prisoner, perhaps, and having suffered terribly, if he came home and found his wife dead, and that his children had been through some terrible experience, and that one of them had died through it, well, he might have gone off his head a bit and want revenge.
That's only some months.
But it's possible.
Oh, yes, it's quite possible.
So the murderer may be middle-aged or even old. When I said that the police had rung up, Major Metcalf was frightfully upset. He really was. I saw his face.
Major Metcalf?
Middle-aged. A soldier. Oh, I know he seems nice and perfectly normal, but it mightn't show, might it?
No, often it doesn't show at all.
So it's not only Christopher who's a suspect, there's Major Metcalf as well.
Any other suggestions?
Mr. Parravicini did drop the poker when I said the police had rung up.
Mr. Parravicini?
Oh, I know, he seems old and foreign and everything. But he mightn't be as old as he looks. He moves like a much younger man. And he has definitely got makeup on his face. Miss Casewell noticed it too. He might be, oh, I know it sounds very melodramatic. He might be disguised.
You're very anxious, aren't you, that it shouldn't be young Mr. Wren?
He seems so helpless somehow. And so unhappy.
Mrs. Ralston, let me tell you something. I've had all possibilities in mind ever since the beginning. Boy Georgie, his father, and someone else. There was a sister, you remember?
Oh, the sister?
It might have been a woman who killed Maureen Lyon. A woman. The muffler pulled up, the man's felt hat pulled well down, and the killer whispered, you know. It's the voice that gives the sex away. Yes, it might have been a woman.
Miss Casewell?
She looks the wrong age for the part. Oh yes, Mrs. Ralston, there's a very wide field. Is yourself, for instance.
Me?
You're about the right age.
Oh.
No, why don't you tell me about yourself? I've got no means of checking it at this moment, remember? And then there's your husband.
Child? Oh, don't be ridiculous.
He and Christopher Wren are much of an age. Say your husband looks older than his years and Christopher Wren looks younger. Actual age is very hard to tell. How much do you know about your husband, Mrs. Ralston?
What do I know about Giles? Oh, don't be silly.
You've been married how long?
Just a year.
And you met him where?
At a dance in London. We went in a party.
Did you meet his people?
No, he hasn't any people. They're all dead.
They're all dead.
Oh, you make it sound all wrong. His father was a barrister and his mother died when he was a baby.
You were only telling me what he told you.
Well,
You don't know
yes.
it of your own knowledge.
Oh, no, it's absurd.
Right, Mrs. Ralston, if you knew how many cases rather like yours we get. Especially since the war. Homes broken up and families dead. Fellow says he's been in the Air Force or just finished his army training. Parents killed, no relations. There aren't any backgrounds nowadays, and young people settle their own affairs. They meet and marry. It's parents and relatives who used to make the inquiries before consenting to an engagement. That's all done away with. Girl just marries a man. Sometimes she doesn't find out for a year or two that he's an absconding bank clerk, or an army deserter, or something equally undesirable. How long have you known Giles Ralston when you married him?
Just 3 weeks.
And you don't know anything about him.
That's not true. I know everything about him. I know exactly the sort of person he is. He's Giles. And it's absolutely absurd of you to suggest that he's some horrible, crazy, homicidal maniac. Why, Giles wasn't even in London yesterday when that murder took place.
Where was he? Here?
No, he went across country to a sale to get some wire netting for our chickens.
Bring it back with him?
No, it turned out to be the wrong kind.
Only 30 miles from London, aren't you? Only an hour by train, a little longer by car.
I tell you, Giles wasn't in London.
Just a minute, Mrs. Ralston. This your husband's coat?
Yes.
Evening News. Yesterday's. sold on the streets about 3:30 yesterday afternoon.
I don't believe it.
Don't you? Don't you?
Molly,
Oh, you startled me.
where is he? Where is he gone?
Oh,
The sergeant.
oh, we went out that way.
If only I could get away. Somehow, some way. Is there anywhere I could hide in the house?
Hi.
Yes, from here.
But why?
Darling, they're all so frightfully against me. They're going to say I committed these murders, particularly your husband.
Never mind about him. Listen, Christopher. You can't go on running away from things all your life.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's true, isn't it?
Yes, it's quite true.
You've got to grow up sometime, Chris.
I wish I hadn't.
Your name isn't really Christopher Wren, is it?
No,
And you're not really training to be an architect.
no.
Then why did you
I called myself Christopher Wren. It amused me. And everyone at school used to laugh and call me Little Christopher Robin. Robin Wren Association of Ideas. It was hell being a student.
What's your real name?
We needn't go into that. I ran away whilst I was doing my army service. It was all so beastly, I hated it. Yes, I'm just like the unknown murderer. I told you I was the one the specification fitted. You see, my mother...
Yes, your mother.
It really would have been all right if she hadn't died. She would have taken care of me and looked after me.
Oh, you can't always go on being looked after all your life, Chris. Things happen to you, and you've got to face them. You've got to go on just as usual.
One can't do that.
Yes, one can.
You mean you have?
Yes.
What was it? Something very bad?
Something I've never forgotten.
Was it to do with Giles?
No, it was long before I met Giles.
You must have been very young. Almost a child.
Perhaps that's why it was so awful. Oh, it's horrible, horrible. But I tried to put it out of my mind. I tried never to think about it.
So you're running away too? Running away from things instead of facing them?
Yes, perhaps in a way I am. You know, considering that we never saw each other until yesterday, we seem to understand each other pretty well, don't we?
Yes, it's odd, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose there's a sort of sympathy between us.
Anyway, you think I ought to stick it out?
Well, really, what else can you do?
I might hit the sergeant skis. I can ski quite well.
Oh, that would be frightfully stupid. That would be almost like admitting you're guilty.
Sergeant Trotter thinks I'm guilty.
Oh, no, he doesn't. At least, oh, I don't know what he thinks. Hate him, I hate him, I hate him. Sergeant Trotter. He puts things in your head, things that aren't true, that can't possibly be true.
What is all this?
Oh, I can't believe it. I won't believe it.
What won't you believe? Come on, out with it.
You see this?
Yes?
What is it? Yesterday's paper, a London paper. And it was in Giles's overcoat pocket, but Giles didn't go to London yesterday.
What if he was here all day?
He went out in the car to get some netting for our chickens, but he couldn't find any.
That's all right. Probably he'd gone up to London after all.
But then why didn't he tell me he did? Why pretend he'd been driving all about the countryside?
Perhaps with news of this murder.
Giles didn't know about the murder. Or did he? Did he?
Good Lord, Molly. Surely you don't think... The sergeant doesn't think...
Oh, I don't know what the sergeant thinks. And he can make you think things about people. You ask yourself questions and you begin to doubt. You think that someone you love and know well may be a stranger. That's what happens in a nightmare. You're somewhere in the middle of friends, and all of a sudden you see their faces and they're not your friends anymore. They're all different people, all pretending. Perhaps you can't trust anybody. Perhaps everybody's a stranger.
Well, I seem to be interrupting something.
No, we were just talking. I've got to get out to the kitchen and get home and do dinner.
No, you won't.
Giles.
Tete are very healthy things at the moment. Look here, you keep out of the kitchen, you keep away from my wife.
But really...
You keep away from my wife, Wren. She's not going to be the next victim.
So that's what you think about me.
I've already said so, haven't I? Seems to me there's a killer loose in this house and you fit the bill.
I'm not the only one to fit the bill.
Don't see who else does.
How blind are you, or do you just pretend to be blind?
I tell you, I'm just worried about my wife's safety.
So am I. That's why I'm not going to leave you alone here with her.
What the hell are you trying to
No, I won't.
Please, Christopher, I mean it. Please go.
I shan't be far away.
Molly, you must be crazy. Perfectly prepared to shut yourself in the kitchen with a homicidal maniac.
Oh, he isn't.
Only got to take one look at him to tell that he's balmy.
He isn't. He's just unhappy. I tell you, Charles, he isn't dangerous. I'd know if he was dangerous. Besides, I can look after myself.
Well, that's what Mrs. Boyle said.
Charles, don't.
Look here, what is there between you and that wretched boy?
What do you mean by between us? I feel sorry for him, that's all.
Perhaps you met him before. Perhaps you suggested to him to come here and you pretend to meet for the first time. All cooked up between you, was it?
Well, then you want out of your mind. How dare you suggest these things?
Well, rather odd, isn't it, that he should come and stay in an out-of-the-way place like this?
No other than Miss Casewell and Major Metcalf and Mrs. Boyle, sure.
Oh, I read once that these homicidal cases were able to attract women. Seems as though it were true. So how long have you known it? How long has this been going on?
You're being absolutely ridiculous. I never set eyes on Christopher Wren until he arrived yesterday.
Perhaps you've been running up to London to meet him on the
You
sly.
know perfectly well I haven't been up to London for weeks.
Oh, haven't been up to London for weeks. Oh, is that so?
What on earth do you mean? It's quite true.
Oh, is it? What's this then? It's from the gloves you were wearing yesterday, isn't it? You dropped it. I picked it up this afternoon when I was talking to Sergeant Trotter. Do you see what's inside? It's a London bus ticket.
Oh, that.
So it seems you didn't only go to the village yesterday, you went to London as well.
All right, I went
Perhaps that was safely away racing around the countryside.
Once you were racing round the countryside.
Come on now, admit it, you were in London.
All right, I went to London. So did you.
What?
So did you. You brought back an evening paper.
Oh, where'd you get hold of that?
It's in your overcoat pocket.
Well, if anyone could have put it there.
What did they? No, you were in London.
All right, so I was in London, but I didn't go to meet a woman there.
Didn't you? Are you sure you didn't?
Then what? It must be
Go away! Don't touch me!
Did you go to London yesterday to meet Christopher Wren?
Don't be a fool, you know I didn't.
Then why did you go?
I shan't tell you that. Perhaps now I've forgotten why I went.
Come on, I don't know what's come over you. You seem so different all of a sudden. I feel as if I don't know you anymore.
Maybe you never did know me. We've been married how long? Just a year? But you don't know anything at all about me. What I've done or thought or felt or suffered before I met you.
Come on, you're crazy.
All right, then I'm crazy. Why not? Perhaps it's fun to be crazy.
What the hell has come over you?
Now, I do hope you young people are not both saying a little more than you mean. Why does have that to in this lovers' quarrel?
Oh, lovers' quarrels, that's good.
Quite so, quite so. I know just how you feel. I've been through all this myself when I was a younger man. Jeunesse, as the poet says. Not been married long, I imagine.
It's not your damn business, Paravicini.
No business at all. But I just came in to say that the sergeant cannot find his skis, and I'm afraid he's very annoyed.
What's that?
He wants to know if you'll perhaps move them, Mr. Ralston.
No, certainly not.
Mrs. Ralston, have you removed my skis from the cupboard back there where you took
Of
them?
course not.
Somebody's taken them.
Well, what made you happen to look for them?
The snow is still lying. I need help here, reinforcements. I was going to ski over to the police station at Market Hampton to report on the situation.
And now you can't. Oh, dear, dear. Somebody see to it that you certainly shan't do that. But there could be another reason, couldn't there?
Yes, what?
Well, somebody may want to get away.
What did you mean when you said Christopher just now?
So, a young architect has halted, has he? Oh, very interesting.
Oh, thank goodness you haven't gone.
Did you take my skis, Mr. Wren?
Your skis, Sergeant? No, why should I?
Mrs. Ralston...
Since Mr. Wren is very fond of skiing, I thought he might have borrowed them just to get a little exercise.
Exercise?
Now listen, you people, this is a serious matter. Somebody's removed my only chance of communication with the outside world. I want everybody in here at once.
I think Miss Casewell's gone upstairs.
I'll get her.
I left Major Metcalf in the dining room. Major Metcalf? He's not there now.
I'll see if I can find him.
Hello, wanting me?
It's a question of my skis.
Skis?
Mr. Ralston.
Did either of you two remove a pair of skis from the cupboard near the kitchen door?
Good Lord, no. Why should I?
And I didn't touch them.
Nevertheless, they are gone. Which way did you go to your room?
By the back stairs.
Then you passed the cupboard door.
I think so. I have no idea where your skis are.
You were actually in that cupboard today.
Yes, I
At
was.
the time Mrs. Boyle was killed.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed, I had gone down to the cellar.
Were the skis in the cupboard when you passed through?
I had the least idea.
Didn't you see them there?
Can't
You
remember.
must remember if the skis were there then.
No good shouting at me, young fella. I wasn't thinking about any damn skis. I was interested in the cellars. Architecture of this place is fascinating, don't you know? I opened inside doors, and I went on down. So I can't tell you whether your skis were there or not.
You realize that you yourself had an excellent opportunity of taking them?
Yes, I grant you that. If I had wanted to, that is.
The question is, where are they now?
Ought to be able to find them. We're all set to. Not a case of hunt the fiddle, you know. Whacking great things, skis. Supposing we're all set to. What?
Why so fast, Major Metcalf? That may be, you know, what we are meant to do.
Hey, I don't get you.
I'm in the position now where I've got to put myself in the place of a crazy, cunning brain. I've got to ask myself what he wants us to do and what he himself is planning to do next. I've got to try and keep just one step ahead of him, because if I don't, there's going to be another death.
You still don't believe that?
Yes, Miss Casewell, I do. 3 blind mice, 2 mice cancelled out, a 3rd mouse still to be dealt with. There are 6 of you here listening to me. One of you is a killer. I don't know which yet, but I shall. Another of you is the killer's prospective victim. That's the person I'm speaking to. Mrs. Boyle held out on me. Mrs. Boyle is dead. You, whoever you are holding out? Well, don't. Nobody who's killed twice is going to hesitate to kill a 3rd time. And as it is, I don't know which of you it is who needs protection. Come on now. Anybody here who has anything, however slight, to reproach themselves for in that bygone business had better come out with it. All right, you won't. I'll get the killer. I've no doubt of that. But it may be too late for one of you. And I'll tell you another thing. The killer's enjoying this. Yes, he's enjoying himself a good deal. All right, we can go.
Talking of chicken, dear lady, have you ever tried chicken liver, soaked on toast that has been thickly smeared with foie gras, with a very thin rasher of bacon, just touched with a soupçon of fresh mustard? I shall go with you into the kitchen and we shall see what we can concoct together. A charming occupation.
I'm helping my wife, Penelope.
Oh, your husband is afraid for you. Oh, it's quite natural under the circumstances. He doesn't fancy your being alone with me. It's my sadistic tendencies he fears, not my dishonorable ones. And alas, what an inconvenience the husband always is. Arrivederla.
Oh, I'm sure that Giles doesn't think...
He's quite wise. Take no chances. Can I prove to you, or to him, or to our dogged sergeant, that I am not a homicidal maniac? So difficult to prove the negative. And suppose, instead, I am really long gone.
Oh, darling.
Oh, it's such a gay little tune, don't you think? Oh, she cut off their tails with a carving knife. A slick, slick, slick. Ah, delicious. It's just what a child would adore. Cool little things, children. Some of them never grow up.
Oh, you stop breaking my wife at once.
No, please, it's silly of me. But you see, I found her. Her face was all purple. I can't forget it.
Yes, it's difficult to forget things, isn't it? You aren't really the forgetting kind.
I've got to go into the kitchen. Take care of it. Oh, leave me alone, Giles.
What did you say to the lady to upset her, sir?
Me, Sergeant? Just a little innocent fun. I've always been fond of a little joke.
There's nice fun, and there's fun that's not so nice.
Now, I do wonder what you mean by that.
I've been doing a little wondering about you, sir.
Indeed.
I've been wondering about that car of yours and how it happened to overturn in a snowdrift so conveniently.
Inconveniently, don't you mean?
That rather depends on the way you're looking at it. Just where were you bound for, by the way, when you had this accident?
I was on my way to see a friend.
In this neighborhood?
Not very far from here.
What was the name and address of this friend?
Now, really, Sergeant, does that matter now? I mean, it has nothing to do with this predicament, has it?
You always like the fullest information. What did you say this friend's name was?
I didn't say.
No, you didn't say. And it seems you're not going to say. Now, that's very interesting.
But there might be so many reasons. An amour, discretion, of these jealous husbands.
Rather old to be running around with the ladies at your time of life, aren't you?
Oh, my dear Sergeant, I'm not perhaps quite so old as I look.
That's just what I've been thinking, sir.
What?
That you may not be as old as you try to look. There's a lot of people trying to look younger than they are. If somebody goes about trying to look older, Well, it does make one ask oneself why.
Having asked questions of so many people, you ask questions of yourself? Isn't that overdoing things?
I might get an answer from myself. I don't get many from you.
Oh, well, try again. That is, if you have any more questions to ask.
One or two. Where were you coming from last night?
Oh, that's simple. From London.
What address in London?
Oh, I always stay at the Ritz Hotel.
Very nice, too, I'm sure. What is your permanent address?
I dislike permanency.
What is your business or profession?
I play the market.
Stockbroker?
Oh, no. You must understand me.
Enjoying this little game, aren't you? Sure of yourself, too. But I shouldn't be too sure. You're mixed up in a murder case, and don't you forget it. Murder isn't just fun and game.
Not even this murder? Oh, dear me. Oh, you are very serious, Sergeant Trotter. I always had felt policemen had no sense of humor. Is the Inquisition over for the moment?
For the moment, yes.
Oh, thank you so much. I shall go and look for your skis in the drawing room, just in case someone has hidden them in the grand piano.
Just a minute, please.
Were you speaking to me?
Yes, perhaps you would come and sit down?
Well, what do you want?
You may have heard some of the questions I was asking Mr. Paravicini.
I heard them.
I'd like a little information from you.
What would you like to know?
Full name, please?
Leslie Margaret Catherine Casewell.
Cat.
I spell it with a K.
Quite so. Address?
Via Mariposa, Pine Door, Majorca.
That's in Italy?
It's an island, a Spanish island.
I see. And your address in England?
Care of Morgan's Bank, Leadenhall Street.
No other English address?
No,
How long have you been in England?
a week.
And you've been staying since your arrival?
At the Ledbury Hotel, Knightsbridge.
What brought you to Knoxville Manor, Miss Casewell?
I wanted some quiet in the country.
And how long did you, or do you, propose to remain here?
Until I finish what I came here to do.
And what was that? What was that? What was it you came here to do?
I beg your pardon, I was thinking of something else.
You haven't answered my question.
No, and I don't think I shall, you know. It's a matter that concerns me alone, a strictly private affair.
All the same?
No, I don't think we should argue about it.
Would you mind telling me your age?
No, not in the least. It's on my passport. I'm 24.
24.
You think that I don't look it? That is quite true.
Is there anyone in this country who can vouch for you?
My bank can reassure you as to my financial position. I can also refer you to a solicitor, a very discreet man. I'm not in a position to offer you any social references. I've lived most of my life abroad.
In Majorca?
Majorca and other places.
Were you born abroad?
No, I left England when I was 13.
You know, Miss Casewell, I can't quite make you out.
Does it matter?
I don't know. What are you doing here?
It seems to worry you.
It does worry me. You went abroad when you were 13?
12, 13, thereabouts.
Was your name Casewell then?
It's my name now.
What was your name then? Come on, out with it.
What are you trying to prove?
I want to know what your name was when you left England.
It's a long time ago. I've forgotten.
There are things one doesn't forget.
Possibly.
Unhappiness, despair.
I dare say.
What is your real name?
I told you. Leslie Margaret Catherine Casewell.
Catherine? What the hell are you doing here?
Oh, God. I wish to God I'd never come here.
I always thought the police weren't allowed to give people the third degree.
I've merely been interrogating Miss Casewell.
You seem to have upset her. What did he do?
It's nothing, really. It's just this murder. It's so horrible. It came over me quite suddenly. I think I should go to my room.
It's impossible. I can't believe it. What can't you believe? The 6 impossible things before breakfast, like the Red Queen.
Oh yes, it's rather like that.
Dear me, you look as though you'd seen a ghost.
I've seen something I ought to have seen before. Blind as a bat I've been. But I think now we may be able to get somewhere.
The police have a clue.
Yes, Mr. Wren. At last the police have a clue. I want everyone to settle in here again. Do you know where they are?
Giles and Molly are in the kitchen. I have and not Major Metcalf to look for your skis. We've looked at the most entertaining places, but all to no avail. I don't know where Paravicini is.
I'll get him, you get the others. Mr. Paravicini? Paravicini!
Yes, Sergeant, what can I do for you? Little Bob policeman has lost his skis and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home, dragging a murderer behind them.
What is all this?
Sit down, Major. Mrs. Ralston.
Must I come now? It's very inconvenient.
There are more important things than meals, Mrs. Ralston. Mrs. Boyle, for instance, won't want another meal.
That is a very tactless way of putting things,
Well, I'm
Sergeant.
sorry, but I want cooperation and I intend to get it. Mr. Ralston, will you go and ask Miss Casewell to come down again? Tell her we'll only be for a few minutes.
Your skis being found, Sergeant.
No, Mrs. Ralston, but I may say I have a very shrewd suspicion of who took them and of why they were taken. I won't say any more at the present moment.
Oh, please don't. I always think explanations should be kept to the very end. Exciting last chapter, you know.
This isn't a game, sir.
Isn't it? Now there, I think you are wrong. I think it is a game to somebody.
You think the murderer's enjoying himself? Well, maybe. It may be.
What is happening?
Sit down, Miss Casewell, Mr. Ralston. Now then, will you all pay attention, please? You may remember that after the murder of Mrs. Boyle, I took statements from you all. These statements related your positions at the time the murder was committed. These statements were as follows. Mrs. Ralston in the kitchen, Mr. Paravicini playing the piano in the drawing room, Mr. Ralston in his bedroom, Mr. Wren ditto, Miss Casewell in the library, Major Metcalf in the cellar.
Correct.
Those were the statements you made. I had no means of checking these statements. They may be true, they may not. To put it quite clearly, 5 of these statements are true, but 1 is false. Which one? 5 of you were speaking the truth, but 1 of you was lying. I have a plan that may help me to discover the liar, and if I discover that 1 of you lied to me, then I know who the murderer is.
Not necessarily. Someone may have lied to you for some other reason.
I rather doubt that.
Well, what's the idea, though? You just said you had no means of checking these statements.
No, but supposing everyone was to go through these actions a second time.
Ah, that old chestnut. Reconstruction of the crime.
Now there's a foreign idea.
Not a reconstruction of the crime, Mr. Paravicini. A reconstruction of the movements of apparently innocent persons.
And what do you hope to learn from that?
You'll forgive me if I don't make that clear just at the moment.
So you want to repeat performance?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I do.
It's a trap.
What do you mean it's a trap?
It is a trap. I know it is.
I only want people to do exactly what they did before.
I don't see. I simply can't see what you can possibly hope to find out just by making people do things a second time. I think it's just nonsense.
Do you, Mr. Wren?
Well, you can count me out. I am too busy in the kitchen.
I can't count anybody out. One might almost believe that you're all guilty from the looks of you. Why are you all so unwilling?
Of course, what you say goes, Sergeant. We'll all cooperate, eh, Molly?
Very well.
Wren? Casewell?
Yes.
Paravicini?
Oh, yes, I consent.
Major?
Yes.
So we want to do exactly as we've done before, then?
Same actions will be performed, yes.
Oh, then I will return to the piano in the drawing room, where once again I will pick out the signature tune of a murderer. Dong, dong,
Not so
dong.
fast, Mr. Paravicini. Mrs. Ralston, do you play the piano?
Yes, I do.
And you know the tune of Three Blind Mice?
Don't we all
So you
know
can pick it out with one finger, just as Mr. Paravicini did?
Yes.
Good. Please go into the drawing room, sit at the piano, and be ready to play when I give the signal.
But, Sergeant, I understood we were each to repeat our former
The
roles.
same actions will be performed, but not necessarily by the same people. Thank you, Mrs. Ralston.
But I don't see the point.
There is a point. It is a means of checking up on the original statements, and maybe one statement in particular. Now, will you all pay attention while I assign each of you to your new stations? Mr. Wren, will you kindly go to the kitchen? Just keep an eye on Mrs. Ralston's dinner for her. You're very fond of cooking, I believe. Mr. Paravicini, will you go to Mr. Wren's room? By the back stairs is the most convenient way. Major Metcalf, will you go to Mr. Ralston's room and examine the telephone there? Miss Casewell, would you mind going down to the cellars? Mr. Wren will show you the way. Unfortunately, I need someone to reproduce my own actions. I'm sorry to ask it of you, Mr. Ralston, but would you go outside and trace the telephone wire around to near the front door? Rather a chilly job, but you're probably the toughest person here.
And what are you going to do?
I am enacting the part of Mrs. Boyle.
Taking a bit of a risk, aren't you?
You will all stay in your places and remain there until you hear me call you.
Oh, Harlequin!
No objections about wearing a coat, I hope.
I should advise it, sir. Mrs. Ralston? Mrs. Ralston?
Yes? What is it? You're looking very pleased with yourself. Have you got what you wanted?
I've got exactly what I wanted.
Do you know who the murderer is?
Yes, I know.
Which of them?
You want to know, Mrs. Ralston?
I?
Yes, you've been extraordinarily foolish, you know. You run a very good chance of being killed by holding out on me. As a result, you've been in serious danger more than once.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Come, Mrs. Ralston. The policemen aren't quite so dumb as you think. All along, I've realized you had first-hand knowledge of the Longridge Farm affair. You knew Mrs. Boyle was the magistrate concerned. In fact, you knew all about it. Why didn't you speak up and say so?
I don't understand. I want you to forget. Forget.
Your maiden name was Waring?
Yes.
Miss Waring. You taught school, in the school where those children went.
Yes.
It's true, isn't it, that Jimmy, the child who died, managed to get a letter posted to you? The letter begged for help. Help from his kind young teacher. You never answered that letter.
I couldn't. I never got it.
You just didn't bother.
It's not true. I was ill. I went down with pneumonia that very day. The letter was put aside with others. It wasn't until weeks afterwards that I found it with a lot of other letters. And by then, that poor child was dead. Dead. Waiting for me to do something. Hoping, gradually losing hope. Oh, it's haunted me ever since. If only I'd known, if only I hadn't been ill. Oh, it's monstrous that such things should happen.
Yes, it is monstrous.
I thought the police didn't carry revolvers.
Police don't. I'm not a policeman, Mrs. Ralston. You thought I was a policeman because I rang up from a call box and said I was speaking from police headquarters and that Sergeant Trotter was on his way. I cut the telephone wires before I came to the front door. Do you know who I am, Mrs. Ralston? I'm Georgie. I'm Jimmy's brother, Georgie. You better not scream, Mrs. Ralston, because if you do, I shall fire this revolver. I'd like to talk to you a little. I said I'd like to talk to you. Jimmy died. That nasty, cruel woman killed him. They put her in prison. Prison wasn't bad enough for her. I said I'd kill her one day. I didn't too. In the fog. It was great fun. Hope Jimmy knows. I'll kill them all when I've grown up. That's what I said to myself. Because grown-ups can do anything they like. I'm going to kill you in a minute.
You better not. You'll never get safely away, you know.
Need my skis. Can't find them. It doesn't matter. I don't care if I get away or not. I'm tired. It's all been such fun. Watching you all and pretending to be a policeman.
That gun will make a lot of noise.
It will, rather. Much better to do it the usual way and take me by the neck.
Last little mouse in the trap.
Georgie! Georgie!
You remember me, don't you, Georgie? You remember the farm, Georgie, and the animals? That fat old pig, that bull that chased us across the field, and the dogs.
Dogs?
Yes, Spot in plain. Remember
He'll be unconscious soon with the sedative. His sister's looking after him. Poor fellow's as mad as a hatter, of course. I had my suspicions of him all along.
You did? Didn't you believe he was a policeman?
No, I knew he wasn't a policeman. You see, Mrs. Ralston, I'm a policeman.
You?
Yes, as soon as we got hold of that notebook with Monkswell Manor written in it, we knew it was vital to have someone here on the spot. When it was put to him, Major Metcalf agreed to let me take his place. I couldn't understand it when Trotter turned up.
And Kingswell is his sister?
Yes, it seems she recognized him just before this last business. Didn't know what to do, but fortunately came to me about it just in time. Well, it started to thaw. Help should be here pretty soon. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Ralston, I'll remove those skis. I hid them on top of the four-poster.
I thought it was Mr. Parravicini.
Well, you know, I gather they'll examine that car of his rather thoroughly. Shouldn't be surprised if they find 1,000 or so Swiss watches hidden in the spare wheel. That's his line of work. Nasty little piece of goods, that. Do you know, Molly, I believe you thought I was...
Giles, what were you doing in London yesterday?
Darling, I was buying you an anniversary present. We've been married just a year today.
That's why I went to London. I didn't want you to find out.
No!
These cigars. I do hope they're all right.
Oh, darling, how splendid.
You will smoke them.
Oh, yes, I'll smoke them quite.
Oh, what's my present?
Sorry, dear. I forgot all about your present. There.
Oh, Giles, it's lovely. Oh, darling, I do love you.
I love you, Molly.
Molly, you can see what I made. Oh, I beg your pardon.